Today I've got something really exciting I want to talk to you about, and it's the new Badger bit. This bit is brand new. It's from IDC Woodcraft, of course. You guys know I'm a huge fan of IDC Woodcraft. I am trying my best to get this thing in the camera here. So this is the 1/8 inch roughing bit. You probably know it's two big brothers. It has the hog, which is another roughing bit that we've all known to come and love, except for this one's the 1/8 inch version of it. And it also has another big brother called the Beast. So altogether, there are 3 roughing bits from IDC Woodcraft. But this one here, I want to talk to you a little bit about this because I'm going to be cutting through this pine round. I'm going to be hogging it out for to make a tree of life, and then I'm going to be pouring some epoxy into it. I really wanted to try this baby out, so I decided on the Beast, or not the Beast, the Badger, on the new Badger bit. So I'm actually going to be carving at its full depth of 0.25. I'm going to be running 100 IPM. Now, Garrett will tell you you can run this at 130 inches a minute, which I've seen it do. It can run through ash. It's incredibly powerful, but I didn't want to run that fast on pine because, as you know, with a tree of life design, it has a ton of little wavy, intricate pieces, and I still want to maintain the integrity of my project, but I still want to get the job done at the same time. So a little bit of a trade-off. I moved it down from the 130 IPM down to 100. So hopefully I'll still get really good results. I am using this. Garrett did warn me, this bit is designed a little bit different. It's not the same, the searing action is not the same as the Beast and the hog. This one's actually a little bit rougher. So what I did within Vectric is I actually did a pocket allowance, and I made the tree of life tool path a little bit skinnier so then I can come in with my 1/8 inch end mill and do a profile pass and just clean everything up really nice. But I'm also still preserving that 1/8 inch end mill and not having to fight tearing that up and then just the wear and tear on that. That's what this little guy is for. So I'm going to go ahead and pop this into the router, get this all Z'd up, and then we'll get to see some cutting action. All right, so now I have the Badger inserted into my CNC. I've got my desk boot on, I've got the program loaded, and it is telling me it's going to take roughly about an hour. Now, something to remember about that is it's a large project. This panel here is actually a 24-inch circle. So we are covering a lot of area, and this, like I said, it has a ton. I mean, it's got a bottom where like the roots are all really intricate, and then it has a huge amount of leaves and things to carve out, little swirls and all kinds of intricate little areas to get into. So the thing you have to remember about roughing bits is, yes, they can also increase your time, because if I were to do this with my 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch end mill, I would probably be running this at about 70 inches per minute. That's very conservative. I will up that, you know, depending on the project, depending on the wood. But it was going to take me about an hour and a half, and this is only going to take me, well, right at an hour, 59 minutes. So that knocked off about 30 minutes right off the top. But it's also saving my end mills. I'm not wearing out my 1/8 inch end mill. I'm really getting the benefits of this roughing end mill, because this is a lot of wear and tear on your regular bits. So that's why it's beneficial to have a roughing bit of some kind. Whether you just want to go in and you want to purchase like the 1/4 inch end mill, the hog, or the Beast, go in and get out the bulk of the material. But the benefit that I see behind the 1/8 inch end mill is it can get into those tiny little areas, which is what like the majority of this project could be. So yeah, I could run the 1/4 inch end mill and hog out a bunch of like the bigger areas and then go back in with my standard 1/8 and clean out the rest. But this bit does 98% of the work. So there you go. That's the benefit I see behind it. So, all right, enough yakking. Let's get this project going and you guys will actually get to see what it's doing. Now, I am going to tell you right now, I'm not going to take my dust boot off. It makes an enormous mess, especially when you're cutting pine, and I don't want to make a huge mess, but I will show you how it cuts and what it looks like along the way, so you can kind of get a better idea of what the actual cut looks like when it's doing that. The biggest thing to remember here is that we're actually going to be taking that 1/8 inch end mill after this is done, and I'm going to be doing a profile of the entire project to clean up those outer exterior lines. So when you see the roughness of the cut, don't get scared. We're going to go in with the CNC and clean that up. If you think I'm going to do all that sanding by hand, you're crazy. I'm not doing that. All right, let's do this. All right, so now it's all done. Let's take a look. All right. So we can still see some marks there, which is really not a big deal. I mean, that's really common in pine, unfortunately. It's just because it's so soft and you have that bit deflection. So, you know, plus I want you to keep in mind these pine rounds aren't always like this, has a little bit of a bow to it. So there is that. But what I'm really looking at is the fuzzies here on the edge. I really thought that they would be a little bit rougher, and they actually look really, really good. So the reason that I cut this is because, or reason that I cut it like the way that I did, is because I'm actually going to be pouring epoxy in here. So at some point this will be a Christmas gift for my mom, but I could come in here and clean this out. But for now, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with the 1/8 inch down cut end mill and just do a profile pass along all of these edges and corners and kind of nooks and crannies and clean all of this up. So you can see I have a little repair work to do because I don't know if you caught it in the very beginning of the video. It started here and it kind of went like you can kind of see where it looks boogered up right here, but nobody's really going to notice because it's going to be filled in with epoxy and it's going to look pretty. But I'll probably have some work to do here. But make sure that your datum is to the center of your project. I had it starting from the bottom left corner, and that's why it went like this and then out here. So, whoops, my bad. But anyway, yeah, looks pretty good for the badger bit. I really like how that turned out. All right, so let's move on to cleaning up the project here with that 1/8 inch down cut end mill. And it's actually, this is why it's really important to make sure that you clean out your nut every time. I see so many people that just grab a new one and change it right away and don't take the time to really clean this out, because you can see all of the sawdust that just gets jammed in there, which can create a lot of problems for you later down the road. 1/8 inch downcut bit going into the reducer and then into the collet, and then making sure my bit is at the right length. All right, that is safely in there. We'll go ahead and put that into the nut and into the router. Now, all right, I've got the 1/8 inch end mill in here. You're probably going to ask me next, Kate, the center point of your project is gone. How are you going to re-Z this? All right, so now I want to show you just how easy this is to do. So I'm going to go ahead. I've deleted my old my old toolpath. I'm coming in. I'm selecting my new toolpath. It's going to load. Shouldn't take that terribly long. I think maybe 30 minutes. Almost there. All right, so it's actually going to take 43 minutes to do this profile. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come over here on my Onefinity, and I'm going to hit this button here. I'm going to confirm the origin of where I want to move it back to. So now it's moved back to its home position. So something I have learned is, here it is. Okay, so this might not be like the exact method you want to go with here. This is just a little hack that I've kind of picked up on my own. It's tearing. Piece of blue tape. I'm going to put it under here. Make sure it's pretty much in the center. And bring this down. And then I'm just going to bring it down to where it's barely touching it. Okay. So I'll remove that. Pull that out of there. Done. Is it the most practical way? No. Is it probably the best way? No. Is it the most scientific? No. But does it work? Yes. And that's what matters at the end of the day. Okay, so now I'm just going to come over here to my location button. I'm going to zero out all of my axes. Now that the software, or now that the CNC knows its Z0 position, I can raise this up. I can slip on my boot. It's still running at about 22,000 RPM, so I don't need to change my router. So everything's locked on. I just need to turn on my dust collection. Router. Actually, I need to do a sanity check. Now that's always a little crazy. So you can see where I raised it to. I have the profile 1/8 inch end mill in there ready to go. Safety. All right, we are back with the finished product. We've gotten the CNC out of the way. It's still clamped down, but I want to talk to you a little bit about this project and running the 1/8 inch downcut end mill on the profile pass to clean all of this up after using the Badger bit. the Badger Roughing end mill. So you can see these edges here are a lot cleaner. We looked at the video, we saw how fuzzy all of these edges were, and for pine, you know, you get a lot of fuzz. But now everything is nice and clean, ready for me to do the epoxy pour, with the exception of a few rough spots. Now let's talk about bit deflection just a little bit. So roughing end mills, like this one, are generally upcut bits. And there's a little bit of bit deflection, but not a lot. So what you're seeing here is around the edges here, you're seeing a lot of bit deflection here because it's actually pushing down into the material with a down cut bit versus it coming up out of kicking that material up and out. So yes, it's going to press just a little bit more into the wood. Secondly is this piece looks very, very flat, but it is not. If I let go of these, you can see that it kind of pops up a little bit. So it's probably definitely higher here in the middle. And that's why these little pieces here are actually a lot higher than they are, say, down here. But I just wanted to give you that little bit of information about why you will get something like this. Now, here's the reason I chose a downcut bit and not an upcut bit to do the profile. Upcut bits can give you the fraying. So I either had to basically not do much with an upcut bit, cleaning it up, and I could still have this flush and not a lot of this. Or I could get the clean edges that I wanted and not have to sand, and then I can go in, do a little bit of cleanup, you know, spots like this to get the fuzzies out, just so that doesn't float around in the epoxy. But now I don't have to do a ton of sanding. So naturally I chose to work with the downcut bit because that's what's going to give me these clean, smooth edges. Upcut bits will not give you a nice, smooth edge. So what I want to tell you about next is how to do this in Vectric, because it's really important to understand how to use a roughing bit, which they are great little tools like I've showed you in this video. They're great, but you also don't want to have to double your work by spending hours sanding and cleaning. So we're going to jump into Vectric. I'm going to show you how to run the roughing toolpath and then run the cleanup toolpath with an offset allowance. So let's get over into Vectric. I'll show you what I mean. Do you want to see how wobbly this thing is? This is why it's important to surface your projects. Look at that. That's quite a bit of movement. And that's why you get this. Okay? That's why you get that. Make sure your projects are level when you put them on your CNC. Especially if you're carving something like this and not putting epoxy in it, you'll get this. Let me show you this example. This is my logo. This is the exact same material, except for I surfaced it before I carved it. And look at it. There is none of that. Okay? There's a little roughness where the V-bit went around. Okay, you can see that. But do you see how nice and smooth this is in here? That's what a surfacing can do for your projects. Make them look really, really nice, because I didn't want to put anything in this. So, surface your projects, guys. Hey, all right, so now we are here in Vectric, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this whole project instead of just showing you the finished product. And I want to give you a little more context in the video of how we got to this particular point that we are at right now. So as far as working with a round piece of wood and trying to kind of replicate that within Vectric is what I want to tell you about really quickly. So what I did is my piece of wood is roughly about 24 7/8 inches round. So what I did in Vectric was I actually created a 25 by 25 inch square. And then I grabbed a circle vector. I sized that by the diameter to 25 7/8. And then I centered that to my job setup inside that 25-inch square. And then I brought my vectors in, my tree of life, and I aligned that to the circle that I made. So I aligned the objects to the selected vectors. I aligned those together. So now you can see I have the Tree of Life project ready to go. All I had to do was highlight it and go into my pocketing toolpath at this particular point. Now, for those of you who are just primarily interested in the learning about the roughing bit, I've actually created a second sheet within this project to show you exactly how the roughing toolpath works on a typical project. Me, and like many CNCers, I'm not the typical. I like to make things extra difficult for myself within Vectric and challenge myself at every corner. So if you're with me, you can stay along for the second half of this roughing bit tutorial. If not, and you are just want to understand how the roughing bit works and the process of using the pocketing and profile toolpath, that's going to be up first. So then you don't have to stick around for the rest of the video. But if you do find value in this, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, because I am going to be pushing out a lot more content about Vectric and projects and how they can actually come to life and not just see the finished product and then wonder and struggle. You're going to get a lot more content from me about integrating the two. So, all right, let's go ahead and jump into Vectric, and I'm going to show you right off the bat how to use the, let me make this big screen. There we go. All right, so we're going to make this project here. All right, first step, here's my square. I'm going to come over to my sheets. And no, I'm not going to get into discussing how sheets work right now. That's just not something I want to do. So, all right, here we have a square vector. Let's just say you're working with a bowl, something of that nature, something very simple, very easy. All right, we're going to come over to our toolpaths. We're going to minimize our drawing tab. And I have my vector selected, and I actually already created a pocket toolpath. But here is the pocket toolpath right here. This is what we're using. And I have it set for a cut depth of 0.25, a quarter of an inch. I'm actually going to be using my roughing end mill. This is actually going to be the hog. I don't need to use the badger in this instance because it's an 1/8 inch and I'm hogging out a large area. So I'm going to be using the 1/4 inch. So I have that. I'm doing an offset in a climb cut. I'm going to be doing a ramp plunge of 0.75. And for this particular demonstration, just so you can really see the difference, I'm going to be using a bigger pocket allowance than is what actually is recommended. So I want to talk to you a little bit about this pocket allowance. This is a little bit tricky, and I don't really want to get into why it does what it does in this particular video. That's for a separate time. But for now, I'm going to give you the nitty-gritty. So in a pocket allowance, in a pocket toolpath, this is for the pocket toolpath only. This pocket allowance means a positive number means smaller, and a negative number means bigger. All right, I'm going to say that one more time just so you heard me. A positive number means that inside will be smaller, and a negative number will be bigger. So for this particular demonstration, I'm going to do 0.125. Now, Garrett will tell you in his recommendations for this pocket allowance when you're using the roughing bit is 0.04, and I will show you that. But for this, I want to show you 0.125 so you can really see what it looks like. So I'm going to go ahead and calculate that. Here is our box here. We'll just do a preview visible. So now we've got our nice little 1/4 inch cut pocket. I'm going to close that out. And now we are going to go into our profile toolpath, because what we want to do is come in and clean up this edge, because that roughing bit does not leave a nice clean edge. Okay. So let's go ahead and open up that toolpath. Let's get back into our 2D view. Now for here, we're doing the same depth, except for this time I'm using an end mill, just a 1/4 inch down cut. It's going to be cutting in one pass. I'm going to be cutting on the line. I am going to be adding a ramp, nothing special here. And we're going to calculate. All right. Now you can see it's a little bit difficult to see the difference here, but I know you can see it a little bit. This makes it look really wide here because it's a 1/4 or an 1/8 of an inch. But that's basically what's happening. Now, like I said, for the purpose of this demonstration, I wanted you to see the difference between the profile line and this having that offset of 0.1 or of positive 0.125. So when you do the positive, it makes it smaller. I know that sounds really crazy, but that's what happens. So that's what that will look like. Now, when you're doing this, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a quick profile. You're going to get a cleanup cut. It's going to come in and it's going to remove all of that roughing. And that's how you use a roughing bit. And that's why they are so popular among people who are doing bowls, big carvings, intricate works, things like that, like me with that tree of life. So that's it. That's it in a nutshell. Nothing too overly complicated. Now I'm going to go ahead and reset this preview. Close this out. Come back to the 2D. And we're going to scroll down on our pocket toolpath. Now, like I said earlier, what Garrett recommends for his 1/4 inch end mills is, or even the 1/8 inch end mill, is 0.04. Now remember, positive means smaller. And I know I'm being redundant because sometimes we need that. We need to hear it several times to let it sink in. Okay, so we'll go ahead and preview visible. And then we'll just turn this profile on. So you can see with the 0.04, you can't really see much of a difference. It just looks like it's right on the line. Here it looks like there's a big difference, but that's just because of the way it's angled. So if I do a full Z view, it looks straight on. But that's why I did the 1.25 pocket allowance, so you could see that depth. But that's it. That's how you do a roughing toolpath. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and reset this preview, close this out, and go back into my 2D view. All right. So I hope that little demonstration was helpful for you. If that's what you wanted to learn to do, you can leave now. So I hope that helped. Like I said, hit that subscribe button for me. But if you want to continue on and you want to learn about how I did my tree of life, because it's a little bit more in depth, if you will, with the pocket allowance and then the allowance offset in the profile toolpath. I'm actually going to combine those two in order to get my tree of life project. So here we go. Let me jump back into Vectric. Okay, so I'm going to move over to my Sheets tab here. Turn this Tree of Life on and go back into drawing. All right, we're going to close this out. Now my Tree of Life is ready to go. I'm going to select this vector. I don't need anything more on the drawing tab. All right, so again, I have the pocketing toolpath already set up down here. We're just going to open that up. Have my cut depth of the 0.25, which is the max depth for an 1/8 inch end mill when you are using this particular bit. Typical 1/8 inch bits have a cutting depth per pass of 0.125, an 1/8 of an inch for the 1/8 inch end mill. But this is kind of a rarity because it's a roughing bit, so I can take that full pass of the 0.25. All right, I'm going to be using an offset in a conventional manner. I probably should do a ramp plunge. As you guys know, I've already done this project, but let's just do 0.75. And we're going to do a pocket allowance of negative 0.04. Now remember, positive means smaller, negative means bigger. So you're probably going to say, well, why are you going to want to make the pocket allowance bigger? Well, let me show you why. So I'm going to get rid of that negative pocket allowance and I'm going to calculate this. Yes, I know. Okay. Let me reset this preview. Okay, so the stems are a little scrawny, if you will. Okay, I'm working with epoxy and I don't mind the small details, but if this were a little bit beefier, this would make my life a whole lot easier and probably waste a lot less epoxy projects or a lot less epoxy product. So I could start here and then it could start to, work its way in. And then that way I don't have to do a ton of sanding and cleaning up and scraping off the edges and yada, yada, yada. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. So I'm going to come in, use that pocket allowance. I'm going to do a negative 0.04. And I'm going to calculate. All right, so you can see right there, it automatically got a little bit beefier. Not by much, but a little bit. I mean, 0.04 is pretty tiny to see in a preview, and notice how much bigger it's going to be. Okay, so I beefed it up a little bit here by doing that pocket allowance. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to reset this preview. And I'm going to close that out. And then I'm going to come into my profile. Still doing a cut depth of 0.25, 1/8 inch down cut, except for this one is my standard end mill because I am doing a profile toolpath. I'm just looking to come in and clean up all of those edges like we saw in the beginning of the video when I was carving it. Okay, so standard 1/8 inch end mill, 2 passes, like I mentioned before. Now what I want to do here is I don't necessarily want to run this on the line to clean it up. What I want to do is I want to run it outside the line. And I actually want to beef it up even more. So in this particular toolpath, again, in a profile toolpath, a allowance offset, a positive number means positive, bigger. A negative number means smaller. Much different than the pocketing toolpath and the allowance on over there. So here, I want to run it outside the line. Remember, I'm using a 1/8 inch end mill. So let's say I don't necessarily want to do a full depth, but I guess I could. Let's just do 1.25. So I'm actually going to do the full width of the bit. And I can do that because it's actually taking the 2 passes. So it's going to go down, or it's going to go over 1.25 and down 1.25. So it'll go over because we are stepping it over in the project, and then it's going to go down. So I hope that makes sense. So then we've got a little bit of a ramp in here, and we're going to calculate. So that will show you the big difference. So it looks like to me, I'm starting to lose some detail if I do quite that big. But you can see how much bigger this allowance took. Now, the problem I have here is if I do that full 1.25, I may want to lower my step over just a little bit. Otherwise, I may look into getting some fuzzies. So let me go back into my profile, and I'm going to reduce this. I don't necessarily want to do the full 125. So let's just do 0.07. We're still doing it outside the line. And then I'm adding 0.07 to that calculation. So you can see that got a little bit smaller, and I'm still retaining some of my detail. Oh, what happened there? So with that happened, that's actually too much of an offset. Way too much. We're just taking a look at that. You can see that is not a good look. All right, so let's go back into profile. And let's just do that allowance of 0.04. All right, and you can see how much tidier that looks. There's still some room. We could even move in a little bit more, or just run this straight on the line. These are the things that you can play with when you're doing this. So let's reset that preview. Let's do our pocketing. Well, that's definitely not what we want. Let's do our pocketing. And let's do our profile. I think at this point, Vectric is throwing a temper tantrum because I have done this so many times prepping for this video. So let's go back into our 2D preview. Open up our pocket. Calculate. All right. Preview visible. All right. In our profile toolpath, this is what it's supposed to look like and what it's supposed to do. And it's not doing that for some reason. All right. All right. So now we are back in with the Tree of Life. Let's go ahead and close down our drawing tab, and let's move into the toolpaths and how this baby works. All right, so I'm going to highlight my vector. We're going to do a pocket, starting with the 0.25 1/8 inch end mill. This is actually the Badger 1/8 inch end mill. Okay, I just want to show you that's what I'm doing. All right, so I've got it named here, and here's all the specs for that. All right, so I am going to be doing an offset with a conventional toolpath. Let's add a little bit of a ramp in here, even though you guys know I've already cut it, but it'll be there for next time. All right, so we're doing a pocket allowance of 0.04. Now remember, positive means smaller, negative means bigger. But what I want to show you before I add this a pocket allowance is if I delete this, what this project will look like, and then why we're going to add the pocket allowance. So let's calculate this. Okay. And preview visible. All right. So it's a little scrawny, in my opinion. Okay. I mean, yes, it has a ton of detail, but here's the thing that I'm doing, and this is for my particular project. I'm going to be pouring epoxy in here, and it's a little harder for epoxy to get in each little nook and cranny. And sometimes I get really impatient and don't want to individually pour every little thing. And I just like to pour it all in and then scoop it all off. The problem with that is you waste a lot of product. So there's a couple of things I can do here within Vectric to beef this up a little bit, if you will. So let me close this out. I'm going to open up this pocket again. And we're going to come down here. And we're going to make this a negative 0.04. Right? So let's go ahead and calculate that. All right, you can right away see that it looks a little bit bigger. All right, so let's move on to, actually, let's reset our preview visible. All right. So it looks like we lost some detail. So I might lower that just a little bit. So let's just do 0.02. Okay, so I'm still getting the detail I wanted, but it's just a little bit bigger, which is okay. Yeah, it'll be okay. That's where you see those little fuzzy spots, like in the branches and in some of the leaves and down here. Now I could increase the step over of the bit if I wanted to and not have that as much, but that's probably going to increase my time quite significantly. So I can either pay for it on 30 minutes on the CNC, or I can just use my little Dremel, go in and knock out a few of these little fuzzies in 5 minutes and be on the road. So it's really a personal preference what you want to do. But anyway, so that's what I did with the pocketing. Now here, we're going to do the same depth, but except for this time for this profile toolpath, we are using just a standard 1/8 inch end mill down cut. All right. So this time what we could do is we can machine outside of the line, and we could actually go a full, or I'm sorry, it would actually be an additional 1/16 of an inch, because you have to remember whatever size bit you are using, you are actually only cutting half of the width of the bit. So 1/8, we're cutting a 16th. So if I really wanted to, I could cut outside the line and add, I'm sorry, this needs to be positive, because positive in the profile toolpath actually means positive. This is opposite of what the pocketing toolpath is. So if I want to extend my line by the 0.125, I could do that. But let's take a look and see how much that's going to add and if that's going to compromise the integrity of the design by too much. So I think that's going to be way too much. It's really taking away a lot more of the detail that I would want. So let's do reset preview, which just do that, preview visible, and then the profile. Now what's actually going to happen is there's going to be like a lip of material in here. Let's preview that. That is not something that we want. So let's go back in here. So that is way too big of an offset allowance. So let's just do something small like 0.04. Calculate. Reset the preview. Do the pocketing. Preview that. And let's highlight. Now I'd say this is still quite a bit. But what I want you guys to get the idea of why I'm showing you this is that if you have certain designs where you can make, and if you want to beef up the design a little bit, this is how you can do this. It's a neat, it's a neat trick that you can use when you're doing this. So let's just say we don't want to do any allowance. Let's get rid of that. Let's just run it outside the line. Calculate it. Now you can see how much that tightened up. Tightened up the line. It's going to come in here and it's going to clean up all of this roughness because it's right on the vector. And that's really what we want it to do. And that's why I showed you the first example with the square and the box. So you can have a good idea of how to use that roughing toolpath and what exactly it's meant to do. Now you can play with all of these. Obviously, if this were a lot more of a less, if this were just less in general, this could be, these could really work to your benefit. Now let's do a preview visible. Oh, and of course, Vectric's going to throw a temper tantrum and it's going to decide to tear everything out because I've reset this and done it so many different times. All right, so there's the pocketing, there's the profiling. And if you want to get really technical, we could actually just mill this on the line. Now you'll notice when you do it on the line, you can actually not do an allowance. It's only for inside and outside. So let's just mill it on the line. Okay, so let's turn that off and then turn that on. Reset the preview, preview all toolpaths. All right. So there you go. Right, that's what that will look like. So you can beef up your designs if you want by adding that offset, allowance offset with a positive number, which will make it bigger. and a negative number will make it smaller in the profile toolpath. In the pocketing toolpath, if you use a positive number, it will get smaller. And if you use a negative number, it will get bigger. Okay, so that's kind of how that works. Now you need to remember the other thing about this project is I don't need to actually select this outside vector because you need to imagine that this circle is your actual piece of wood that you are working with. This is the design inside here. It's another little handy trick that you can do if you want to use clamps and not CA glue. This is what I do. I come grab my measuring tool, make sure my snapping is on, and I will snap this to here. And then up here, you can see the distance, 0.9 inches. So I know as long as my clamps are not an inch, it's not going to run into the router. So that's where we are. That's how that all works. There are a lot of things that you can do within Vectric, and there are so many different ways. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity to try this. Use the pocketing. Try to remember that the negative means bigger and the smaller means positive. And then in the profile toolpath, positive means positive, negative means negative. It took me a minute to bring to you guys to make sure that you understand it. So anyway, I hope you guys found value in this. I know it's been a little bit of a longer video, but now you have some cool concepts to try and apply to your designs if you are looking to get a very specific size item or object within a project. Those pocket allowance and allowance offset can help you achieve that. So again, I'm Kate with Women Who CNC. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Don't forget to like our channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.